Admiral Kazarn stood before the observation bay of the Fong of Eternity, the Zorvok Empire's largest dreadnought, arms clasped behind his back. The blackened steel of his armor shimmered under the pulsing light of the galaxy's edge. His crew stood silently, thousands of eyes, some compound, some single lens, focused on him. Beyond the transparent steel, Earth rotated lazily, draped in the glow of its nearby sun. Blue oceans, green lands, ribbons of cloud. It was unremarkable, vulnerable, unarmed. "We have taken stars," he said, voice low but resonant, vibrating through the deck. "We have crushed civilizations with technology they could not name. What is this? A planet of mammals. Divided, noisy, slow." The bridge erupted in affirming clicks and grunts from a dozen species that made up his command staff. Commander Verzik, his neural cords twitching at the temples, stepped forward. Minimal orbital defense. No planetary shield. Their largest projectile range peaks at low orbit. A rock could beat them. Laughter, if one could call it that, buzzed and chittered across the room. Kazarn allowed himself a thin smile. "Then we do not send a rock. We send fear. Precision. Make an example." Earth had been flagged in their conquest logs as a Category D, non-warp capable, internally conflicted, intellectually primitive. The Zorvok had received only fragmented data from the planet's digital networks. Their linguists noted a cacophony of dialects and syntaxes, none consistent, none efficient. Human data storage was a tangled mess of memes, wars, conspiracies, and entertainment labeled reality. They had dismissed most of it as cultural noise. No one on the fleet thought to look deeper. "Launch formation," Kazarn ordered. "We strike in 6 rotations. I want them silenced before they understand who speaks." As the command echoed out, ships began to maneuver into coordinated descent. The stars behind them shifted as thousands of warships locked into geometric patterns, slicing through the black like a celestial spear. But deep inside the Terran grid, a different kind of spear had just been thrown. In a cramped basement in Estonia, 17-year-old Alina Grigorevna stared at her monitor, disbelief written across her face. She wasn't supposed to be in the military satellite backdoor. She had been chasing signals. Strange patterns in deep space comms bouncing off outdated weather satellites. At first, she thought it was solar interference. Then she noticed timing, harmonics. Something was piggybacking on the old frequencies. Not just eavesdropping, broadcasting. She tapped in a test signal. No response. Then she tried music. The first few notes of Rick Astley's "Never Gonna Give You Up" streamed out through a hijacked Cold War relay station orbiting above the Pacific. On the Fong of Eternity, a human voice crackled suddenly over the internal comms. "Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down." Dozens of alien officers jerked upright. Some instinctively activated countermeasures. The music blared uninterrupted. Verzik's jaw unhinged in confusion. "We've been breached? Is it a warning code?" Kazarn leaned forward. "Replay that message. Translate every frequency. This is either a war cry or a curse." The music looped again. "Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Is this psychological warfare?" "No. Supreme One," Verzik said cautiously, tapping through data layers. "It appears to be rhythmic emotion simulation, perhaps a mating threat." The bridge went silent, the alien equivalent of holding breath. Kazarn turned slowly. "Prepare all ground assault units. This species thinks us fools." The invasion was greenlit without further delay. Back on Earth, government scrambled. Alina's hacked broadcast, initially flagged by international security as a cyber attack, had inadvertently revealed the incoming armada's frequency range. Within hours, a loosely coordinated network of military AIs, civilian technologists, and curious hackers had started probing the alien channels. By the time the first Zorvok dropship entered Earth's atmosphere, the humans were waiting. Not with lasers, not with shields, but with chaos. Miscommunication, spoofed transmissions, erratic behavior. From the Fong, Kazarn watched the planet react. They haven't launched anything. No nuclear retaliation. Just noise. "They are disorganized," Verzik said. though even he sounded unsure. A species without unity. Xarn hesitated. Something about it felt wrong. Not fear, not preparation. Disregard. As if they didn't take the threat seriously at all. In a quiet chamber below the command deck, a young communications officer was reviewing intercepted transmissions. The Zorvok had underestimated how much data Earth spat into the void. One packet caught her attention. Footage stitched together from multiple angles, set to what appeared to be dramatic music. Explosions, screaming, giant monsters, cities burning. She flagged it as military evidence and submitted it for review. 20 minutes later, Admiral Xarn watched the same footage. "What weapon is this?" he asked, eyes narrowing as he watched a single man wielding a shield repel a fleet of aircraft. Verzik blinked his tri-eyes. "They call him Captain. Possibly their general. And this creature?" Xarn gestured at a green-skinned colossus flipping a tank like a toy. Verzik cleared his throat. "Designation: Hulk. No known countermeasures." Xarn stared, genuinely uncertain now. Why was none of this in the reports? They mix fiction and truth, Supreme One. Their data isn't filtered. It's all jumbled together. We couldn't tell what was real. "Then tell me, Commander," Xarn growled. "Is the man in the metal suit a god?" Silence. Back on Earth. Alina refresher terminal, now flooded with messages from researchers, hackers, and a few government proxies. Most of them wanted one thing: to know how she accessed the alien signal. She ignored them. Instead, she sent another file. This time, it wasn't a song. It was a video compilation. Clip after clip of human combat, resilience, insanity. Firefighters running into burning buildings. Protesters facing tanks. Wildlife videos of honey badgers attacking lions. Interviews with survivors of disasters saying, "We don't quit." She added a single caption: "You should have Googled us." In orbit, Zorvok encryption cores began to flag a new kind of threat: cognitive dissonance. A psychological wave, not from weapons, but from story. Earth's digital legacy had bled into their systems. They were not facing mere primitives. They were facing something they did not understand. Admiral Xarn stared at the planet now with unease. The blue orb didn't shimmer so gently anymore. It pulsed like something alive, watching. He turned slowly to Verzik. "Prepare contingency protocols. This may not be a conquest." The commander hesitated. "Then what is it?" Xarn didn't answer immediately. From the speakers, Rick Astley's voice echoed one final time. "Never gonna give you up." He clenched his fists. "It's a mistake." The first Zorvok landing craft descended over San Diego with the clinical precision of a surgical blade. From the sky, they looked like shards of obsidian falling in formation. When they touched ground, they unfolded in seamless layers of dark alloy, releasing sleek, 8-limbed soldiers in exo-hardened suits that shimmered with bioreactive camouflage. Each unit moved with military efficiency, scanning for organized resistance, deploying pacification drones, and seeding neural dampeners in the air. They expected fear. What they got was a man in a taco costume hurling a Molotov cocktail and yelling, "Welcome to Earth, you squid-faced Wi-Fi thieves." The bottle exploded on contact, flames licking the side of the lead unit's armor. The alien didn't fall, but it staggered. Its squad hesitated just long enough for a flood of skateboarders, rooftop snipers, and drone-carrying teens to emerge from alleyways and storefronts. A cacophony of air horns, fireworks, and hacked car alarms erupted in every direction. The Zorvok formation crumbled not from damage, but confusion. Across the city, the same story unfolded. In New York, fire escapes rained debris and fury. In rural Kansas, farmers wielded old rifles and tractor-mounted shotguns with precision honed from generations of necessity. In Tokyo, a group of VR gamers coordinated a real-time ambush using AR overlays and rendered delivery bots. It wasn't organized resistance. It was improvisation, erratic and undisciplined. But it worked. At the center of it all, Alina sat in a windowless cybersecurity bunker under Berlin. Her hoodie pulled tight around her face as she typed with frantic precision. What began as a rogue hack had snowballed into an accidental alliance of misfits, coders, and gamers. Her signal traces have been amplified and adopted by an anonymous collective now calling themselves the Earth Patch. They didn't have military ranks or clear objectives. They had memes, algorithms, a language the aliens couldn't parse because it wasn't consistent. It evolved mid-sentence. When alien drones tried to intercept communications, they encountered nonsense strings, ASCII art layered sarcasm, cryptic emoji chains, and endless variations of the word bro. One viral campaign stitched together footage of alien ships overlaid with Earth's greatest cinematic explosions, score by Beethoven's Ninth and heavy dubstep. The video looped across commandeered Times Square billboards with a single phrase, "You picked the wrong planet." Alina didn't laugh. She was focused, sweating. This was bigger than she'd imagined. She wasn't saving the world. She was distracting it long enough to improvise a defense. The aliens tried to adapt. Their algorithms studied behavior, tried to categorize threats. But every time they adjusted, the humans changed tactics. In Brazil, a gang of X-Street racers turned their cars into high-speed rams, weaving through cities with modified engines running on ethanol and rage. In Moscow, pensioners poured boiling borscht onto drones from balconies while streaming the chaos live. In Nairobi, school kids weaponized classroom projectors to blind enemy scouts, then pelted them with soda bottles filled with bees. No one had given them orders. They simply refused to lose. At a mobile command post outside Paris, General Amira Salif stood over a field map made of crumpled fast food wrappers and satellite overlays. Her uniform was dusty, but her eyes burned with clarity. "They're hitting hard but retreating faster," she told the UN Defense Liaison. "Not out of weakness. Confusion. They don't know what's happening." The liaison adjusted his glasses, sweating. "We're not coordinated. We don't even have a global strategy." "We don't need one," Amira said. "They're a machine. We're noise. And noise can't be predicted." Her assistant passed her a new feed, pirated footage from an alien helmet cam, uploaded to a social media site by a teenager in Seoul. It showed the trooper surrounded by humans dressed as movie characters, sports mascots, and, inexplicably, someone in a Pikachu costume holding a flamethrower. The trooper dropped his weapon. The footage ended. She forwarded it to the world's command network with the caption, "Let chaos be our doctrine." Not all fights were flashy. In a London suburb, an elderly woman named Mrs. Delaney baked explosive scones laced with powdered magnesium and left them near crash sites. In Johannesburg, a software engineer programmed a fleet of stolen delivery drones to blast white noise at specific frequencies, disrupting alien comms. No one had asked them to. They just acted. And somewhere in the Arctic Circle, a research team with no military affiliation redirected an alien weather probe satellite into an electromagnetic storm, using only duct tape and equations scribbled on a thermal blanket. Back in orbit, Admiral Xarn watched the data reports with increasing agitation. Casualties were minimal, but morale was plummeting. Entire squads were requesting extraction, citing hostile psychological environments. Some had been bombarded by images of cats in tactical gear. Others reported being followed by humans, speaking only in quotes from outdated action films. One scout team had been lured into a trap by a trail of pizza slices. Another was attacked by a marching band. Verzik tried to explain. Their resistance has no hierarchy, no pattern. Every time we map behavior, it transforms. They even mock us with their transmissions. One message claimed Earth is ruled by being named Keanu. Xarn's jaw twitched. "These aren't warriors." "They aren't soldiers," Verzik agreed, almost whispering. "But they fight." A pause. Then the Admiral asked, "Are they enjoying this?" Verzik didn't answer. Deep in a Berlin tunnel, Alina slumped against a wall, exhausted. Her screen still flickered with encrypted bursts from every continent. She wasn't leading anyone. She wasn't special. She was just another node in the madness. And yet she felt it, Earth's heartbeat. Furious, irregular, alive. A new message came through from an unknown source. Just one line. They expected submission. We gave them humanity. Alina smiled for the first time in days. Then she typed back, "We're just getting started." The Zorvok High Command was unraveling. Admiral Xarn paced the length of the Fong of Eternity's war chamber, his heavy boots echoing against the obsidian alloy floor. Holograms of Earth's cities flickered in disarray. Regions previously marked as subdued now pulsed crimson with activity. Zorvok patrols had gone dark across 5 continents. The Admiral had requested a full psychological audit of his fleet, and the results were grim. Units were refusing orders, not in defiance, out of uncertainty. They feared the planet itself. Xarn paused before a shimmering display showing what analysts had dubbed cultural contaminants. There were no weapons, no formal strategies. Just an endless stream of videos, song, graffiti, and action so unpredictable they scrambled the Empire's decision engines. One data thread showed a group of humans wearing rubber horse masks staging a mock gladiator battle in Times Square. No tactical value, but the footage had gone viral, across Zorvok ships. What are we missing? Xarn growled, voice sharp with frustration. Why do they not break? Verzik, less confident now, tapped a control node. Their networks don't just inform. They infect. The species doesn't broadcast truth. They broadcast belief, identity, fiction as weapon. He pulled up a short clip. A child in a cape, standing atop a car, shouting, "You can't win. Earth has heroes." The statement was meaningless, but it had been shared millions of times, both by humans and, disturbingly, by a growing number of Zorvok soldiers. Xarn clenched his fists. "You mean they are deluded?" Verzik didn't correct him. "It's worse. They know it's fiction, and they choose to believe it anyway." Meanwhile, down on Earth, General Amira Salif stood in the ruins of what had once been a Zorvok landing pod near the outskirts of Nairobi. The twisted hull smoldered, scorched by flames and a cocktail of home-brewed acid launched from modified fire trucks. Around her, civilians swept the area with casual efficiency, their movements practiced. Resistance had evolved. Improvised militias were now intelligence cells, supply chains born from street vendors and stolen delivery vans. Nothing official, nothing orderly. Amira scanned the horizon, radio in hand. How many this time? Her aide flipped through a tablet. 7 units routed. 2 requested extraction. 1 surrendered. That made her stop. Surrendered? The aide nodded. To school children in Dar es Salaam. The soldiers dropped weapons and asked to see. What was it? He checked his notes. A soccer match. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she whispered, "They're unraveling." Across the Pacific, in a heavily shielded data center beneath Silicon Valley, Alina watched the same trends from a different angle. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as Earthpatch AI scraped alien communications for sentiment patterns. Something remarkable had started to emerge. Memes generated by the aliens themselves. The first was crude, a poorly translated Earth joke involving a chicken and a road. The second was more complex, a still image of Xarn overlaid with bold text reading. "I invaded Earth and all I got was this existential crisis." The alien fleet was being mimetically absorbed. Alina didn't cheer. She frowned. She understood what was happening now. Why Earth had survived when it should have fallen. The planet's greatest weapon wasn't technology. It was culture. It was the chaos of contradiction, of telling a story so powerfully, even if it was fake, that it changed the truth. But it wasn't enough. Alina knew the Zorvok were adapting. Their analytical engines had begun to evolve, trying to predict the narrative. They wouldn't fall for the same tricks twice. The window to end this was closing. She reached out to her limited network of trusted operatives. A single message was sent, bouncing across encrypted frequencies. Final wave. Hit them where they can't simulate. Show them who we really are. And Earth responded. In Paris, ballet dancers performed in front of advancing tanks, daring them to pass. In Mumbai, commuters covered walls in poetry, each verse a declaration of defiance. In Cape Town, DJs hijacked emergency broadcasts with remixed speeches, looping Mandela's words over synth and bass. No commands, no generals, just people choosing, again and again, to matter. The Zorvok ships, still superior in number and firepower, began to hesitate. When they deployed shock units to restore control in Berlin, they were met not with weapons, but with silence. Thousands stood in a square, unarmed, eyes locked on their invaders. It was a message. We are not afraid of you. And that frightened them more than any missile. Xarn watched it unfold with growing dread. What began as annoyance had become revelation. This planet is not what we thought, he admitted aloud, barely above a whisper. Their strength is not in their unity, but in their contradiction. Verzik turned. Orders, Supreme One? Xarn stared at the image of a protester holding a cardboard sign that read, "In space, no one can hear you underestimate Earth." He closed his eyes. Prepare a global signal. No weapons. No threats. Verzik's neck muscles tensed. Are we opening negotiations? Xarn shook his head. No, we're asking one question. Verzik waited. Xarn said, we asked them why they fight like this. Below, Alina's console pinged. A new transmission, clean and open, no encryption. An audio signal. It said only, why do you resist when your victory is impossible? Alina stared at the words. She looked out the tiny window above her terminal, where the sky was just beginning to darken, and then she typed a reply. Because stories matter. And we've written ours in fire. The Zorvok ships didn't retreat. Not yet. They hovered like thunderclouds over the world cities, unmoving, unreadable. The silence between Earth and the stars grew heavier by the hour. Every second an unanswered question. In the skies over Buenos Aires, 3 alien carriers remained suspended. The city had gone quiet, not in fear but in wait. Below, chalk messages sprawled across sidewalks in dozens of languages. Children pointed upward and made faces at the hovering giants. Street vendors resumed their stalls. Life pressed on, deliberately unbroken. Alina sat alone in a high-rise apartment overlooking Berlin's fractured skyline. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. Her terminal was quiet now. Earthpatch had gone dormant, not from failure, but purpose. The final message had been sent. The stories had been told. The aliens were listening. She replayed the broadcast for the 100th time, her own voice echoing from speakers. We resist not because we think we'll win. We resist because surrender would erase us, and we'd rather go down dancing. The reply from orbit hadn't come. She stood, stretched, and turned toward the window. Below, people gathered in the park. A jazz trio played beside a food truck. A woman with blue hair handed out sunflowers. Someone had spray painted on a wall. Aliens, y'all picked the wrong planet. Then the sky changed. From horizon to horizon, the clouds warped and split apart like silk under pressure. The Zorvok ships lit up. Not weapons this time, but communication signals, a constellation of synchronized pulses. One by one, they projected images onto the Earth's atmosphere. Not threats or warnings, but mirrors of human expression. A ballet performance in Moscow. A punk show in Detroit. A wedding ceremony in Lagos. Fragments of life, as interpreted by an intelligence desperately trying to understand. In Nairobi, General Amira Salif stood at her observation post and watched the ship descend not with menace, but with caution. She ordered no fire. Instead, she walked alone toward the landing site, her boots crunching over broken concrete, flanked by civilians who said nothing but followed. The vessel opened like a blooming steel flower, and from within, a Zorvok diplomat emerged, not armored but robed, its weapon systems visibly disabled. The creature approached her and paused. Its mouth part shifted before it spoke in a voice low and strange, like wind in an abandoned hall. "We do not understand you," it said. Amira nodded once. "You don't have to. Just leave." The Zorvok's eyes, multifaceted and eerily reflective, studied her. "You fight without probability, without logic. You war with stories." She narrowed her eyes. "We live with them too." A long silence passed. Then the alien bowed, not low, but noticeably. It turned, walked back into its ship, and closed the entrance behind it. The Zorvok fleet began to pull away. One by one, city by city, orbit by orbit, they lifted. Their scanners recorded final footage. Lovers holding hands on rooftops, graffiti that read "We don't break," weary mix, an elderly man saluting a child dressed as a superhero. None of it tactical, all of it human. Admiral Kazarn stood at the helm of his flagship, gazing down at Earth one last time. He was no longer angry, just uncertain. He had seen empires rise and collapse, witnessed rebellions, insurgencies, defiance. But never this, a resistance stitched from humor, absurdity, grief, art, and chaos. There had been no conquest here, only reflection. Verzik approached. "We are ready to depart." Kazarn gave a slow nod. "We came seeking submission. We found recursion." Verzik didn't ask what that meant. He simply initiated the jump sequence. Back on Earth, celebrations weren't immediate. There was no official announcement, no grand declaration of victory. Only the gradual realization that the skies had cleared, the signals had stopped, and no new destruction had come. In the days that followed, the world paused, not to rebuild, not yet, but to understand. Streets once filled with debris now bore murals. Survivors gathered not in mourning, but in cafes and parks, sharing stories, showing one another the strange beauty of what they had done together. In a small apartment in Berlin, Alina finally slept, her laptop screen dimmed beside her. A single new message had arrived during the night. No sender, no trace. It read, "Your chaos infected our logic. We leave before we believe." Weeks later, Alina sat across from General Salif in a declassified briefing room in Geneva. The air was filled with the scent of cheap coffee and cautious hope. "They'll be back," Amira said softly. "Maybe," Alina replied. "But if they do, they'll have to read the sequel." The general cracked the faintest smile. From orbit, Earth looked unchanged, blue oceans, fractured continents, the delicate film of atmosphere clinging to the surface like breath. But to those who had visited and failed to conquer it, Earth was no longer a target. It was a myth, a warning, a mystery etched into galactic memory. Aliens would speak of it in hushed signals. The planet that turned invasion into improvisation. The planet that made war a punchline. The planet that believed so fiercely in its own stories. It made others believe too. And somewhere deep in the stars, the next fleet would pause, just long enough to ask, "Have you heard about Earth?" Because reputation, it turned out, was harder to kill than any species.